right. Welcome, everyone. We are just so excited you have joined us, whether you're joining us here in person or you're joining us online. Thank you so much for being here with us this weekend here at Community. And I am so excited as we are continuing our series called Family Values. And in this series, we're really talking about the values that each and every one of us should have, and not only as families, but as people as a whole. And if these are going to be our family values, then they should do something, right? Like our family values, our goal in our lives with our families, with our relationships, should for them to be centered around Christ. And so that's why we're talking about this in this series. We're trying to establish the things in our lives, in our families, that would help us to continue to center them on Christ, to center them on Jesus, the one who gave up everything. And just like we just sang, to give me Jesus, that's all I need. And man, would that not be amazing in our lives if that was the one thing that mattered? And so last week to kick off the series, we talked about how we need to widen the circle. We need to widen the circle. And if we're going to widen the circle, it means we're going to allow people around us to continue to have an influence in our lives. That we can't grow in our faiths on our own, but it takes more than just us to do that. And so we said for our kids' lives, we want you at Community to trust us as we want to partner with you parents to help your kids to continue to follow Jesus, to continue to find a faith of their own. And so we ask you, partner with us in dropping your kids off in kids ministry or youth ministry so that we can continue to help them to see who Jesus is. And then for our lives, adults, our goal is, again, to be Christ-centered, right? And if we're going to be Christ-centered, we said if we're going to widen the circle in our lives, then we need to be in groups. We need to be involved in a groups. And I challenged everyone in the room. I knew how many people were signed up for groups. And we had a lot of people sign up for groups last week. I think you guys heard me. Congratulations. Thank you. And so I think it's a really big deal, because this is an opportunity for us as a church to continue to widen the circle of influence in our lives so that we can continue to pursue a relationship with Jesus, to continue to build up our faith on a weekly basis. And so I want to challenge you, continue to widen the circle in your lives. Continue to help to find Jesus and to continue to help people to speak into your life. And so if you missed last week, you weren't here, you missed it watching it online, you can follow us. You can watch it on YouTube or Facebook. You can listen to it in podcast form. But I want to encourage you, go back and listen to that and continue to stay connected with us. One thing that I think a lot of us struggle with is sometimes we feel like in our lives we're wandering around without direction. Maybe we're going to something and we just feel like we don't really know why we're there, or we just feel like we have no purpose to what we're doing sometimes. And so it's hard. It's hard because we're not focused on the right thing. And I grew up going on these backpacking trips, and many times we would go on these amazing backpacking trips. We'd go to like the Smokies and we'd backpack, or we'd go and we'd backpack around in different areas in West Tennessee, and we'd go and just get these amazing views. And so I was a Boy Scout growing up. Some of you guys didn't know that. Eventually became an Eagle Scout, and so we would go like a lot on these backpacking trips. And so when you go on your backpacking trips, you load up everything, literally everything you need, and you carry it on your back. And you have to rely on that. And there were other backpacking trips we'd go on, and we'd load up everything, but we would get this piece of paper, and it would just have feet, the amount of feet we had to walk, and then a compass direction. And so we would get these things out, these ancient looking things out, and we'd pull them out. And if you pull out a compass, you can look at it and it looks very complex. But what we would do is sometimes it would say, go 500 feet at 25 degrees. And so you adjust your compass to where you're going in the right direction. You're going 25 degrees in a certain direction, and you follow and you start walking. And so you count your steps as you're walking, and you walk and you walk and you walk. And eventually you get to where you think you've went far enough, and hopefully you've made it at the destination that you want to go to. And then you pull out your list of instructions and you find out where the next place is that you're going. And many times, if you don't get it in the exact right direction, you don't go in the exact right direction that you want to go in, then you end up missing the place you're supposed to go. Like you could be, if you were supposed to walk a long distance, you could be hundreds of feet off of where you were supposed to arrive. And you could just miss the destination altogether. And so it was interesting. We would take these trips and we'd get out there and we'd be wandering around and following the compass and getting places. But there'd be moments when we'd get off course and eventually we have to course correct. So we get to the right place and then go to the right destinations so we can arrive at the place where we're supposed to sleep at night and all of this stuff. And it's so important for us to go in the right direction. I mean, if we went on a cruise, let's say we went on a cruise from Long Beach all the way to Hawaii. Number one, that's a long cruise. That's a lot of time on a boat. But if you're going and the captain sets the compass on the direction that it's supposed to go, but he's just 1 degree off, just 1 degree off, you're going to miss the islands completely. And you're going to be lost without a direction. And you're going to have to course correct. And I think many times in our lives, we've set out in a certain direction, saying this is the direction that I want to go. This is what I want to do with my life. And this is where I want to go in my life. But if we are a few degrees off, then we never wind up where we are supposed to wind up. We set off with the best intentions in our lives, but we miss exactly where we're supposed to go with our lives because we're just off. And we're not focused on the one thing we're supposed to be focused on. And that's Jesus. And we've stopped putting the center of our relationships around the one thing that's supposed to be the center of our relationships, and that's Jesus. And so I want to encourage you, if you're young or you're old, you're a kid or a grandparent, whatever it is, don't tune out in this series of family values, because this is a series that's going to help us to continue to connect to what we need to do with our lives as a whole. And so what we see is in Moses in Deuteronomy 6, he's giving his final press conference to the entire nation of Israel. He's actually giving an address, not a press conference. Okay, that was supposed to be a joke. Okay. He's given this final address, and he's telling them, focus on the right thing. And this is what it says in Deuteronomy 6. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. And tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on your doorframes of your houses and on your gates. See Moses in this final address is talking about, he mentions all the family values we're going to talk about in this series, but remember we talked about last week, he's saying, nation of Israel, all of you right now, it is your job as a whole to impress these commandments on the children coming behind us. And for us as a church, it is our job as a whole to continue to help the next generation to continue to see who God is and how he loved us so much. And so that's why we said last week it is so important for us to widen the circle as parents, to help other people to come alongside us, to help our kids to see who Jesus is. But this week we're talking about in Deuteronomy 6:4, we're using the same verses last week, and we're going to talk about this. It says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." Again, addressing this to the entire nation of Israel. Israel, listen up right now. This is what I need you to know. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. And this can be like a complex statement if we just read it like it is. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. But if we summarize it in this way, in 3 words, we summarize it. God is God. Period. God is God. God is the God. God is the God for us. God needs to be the center for us. God needs to be number one in our lives. And if that's going to be the case, then we have to remember to ourselves that God is God, that everything we need to do needs to be number one for God. And so this isn't like a value per se, but it's maybe a vision for the future. That our kids, that our families, that they all see that God is God. And so here's the family value we're going to talk about today. We need to imagine the end. We need to imagine the end. And so in the relationships we're in, we need to imagine the end. What do we want our relationships to look like? In our kids, we need to imagine the end. In our jobs, we need to imagine the end. What do we want all of these people, these things to look like? What do we want to look like in our lives? And so we have to imagine the end. And for so long, we've gotten stuck in the weeds that we just lose sight of the bigger picture. And so we get stuck in the day-to-day. What's it look like in the day-to-day? But instead, I think sometimes we need to take a step back and imagine what we want at the end of the relationship, at the end of our kids graduating high school, what that looks like. In the end of our lives, we need to take a step back and what do we want our lives to look like at the end? So we have to imagine the end. And so I'm going to take it like we did last week and talk first to parents and then us all as adults and what it looks like for all of us. So parents, for us, it means that we need to take a step out of the day-to-day, the dishes and the clothes and the getting to school and the drive to there and to sports and all of this. And sometimes we need to take a step back in our kids' lives and take the 35,000-foot view of their lives and look at their lives. And what do we want our kids' lives to look like when they graduate high school? We want them to be centered on Christ, right? And so if we are going to hand down a faith to the next generation, the generation coming behind us, then we have to imagine the end for them. If we're going to hand down a faith to that next generation, our kids, then we have to imagine the end for them and what it looks like in their lives for them to be Christ-centered, for God to be God in their lives. And so what do we have to do? We have to visualize what we want our kids to look like when they graduate high school. What kind of values we want our kids to have, how much they respect other people, who they go to church with, if they go to church, all of these things. We have to visualize what we want our kids' lives to look like when they graduate high school. And then on a day-to-day basis, we go back into that day-to-day and we take that one step. What's it look like for them to be more responsible? We give them more responsibility. What's it look like for them to be more respectful? We teach them what respect means. And we show them all of these little things so that eventually when they get to the end of high school, they're Christ-centered. They're following Jesus with their entire lives. They understand what it looks like for them to be sold out to Christ, for him to be the center of their lives. And Reggie Joyner, in his book, Parenting Beyond Your Capacity, which again, I cannot recommend enough. Everyone should read this book. In his book, Parenting Beyond Your Capacity, he says this: what I give to my children or what I do for my children is not as important as what I leave in them. what I give to my children or what I do for my children is not as important as what I leave in them. That's so important. What he's saying here is, it doesn't matter the shoes, the stuff, the clothes, the TVs, the phones, the money, whatever we give to our kids, it all pales in comparison to what we leave in our kids. What he says here is the things we do for our kids, the taking them to sports, the parent-teacher conferences, the time taking them to go to do vacations, and all of doing their laundry and cooking the meals. All of this stuff pales in comparison to what we leave in our kids. It all pales in comparison to what we leave in our kids. And what do we want to leave in our kids? We want them to know who Jesus is, right? We want to leave them in knowing that Jesus should be their number one in their lives. And I'm not saying that all of those things, those other things, are not important. It's important for us to set our kids up on a track for success, but none of that will matter if they don't know who Jesus is. None of that matter if we don't set them off on the right path, going down to an understanding of who Jesus is. And so it's so important for us to continue to help them to see who Jesus is in every part of their lives. And so what does that look like for us? It looks like reading the Bible with them. Maybe buy one of the kids' Bibles. If your kids are young, buy one of those adventure Bibles and just read one story of a Bible character with them. Maybe it means praying with them. Not just whenever you sit down to eat, but praying with them in the morning, praying with them at bed, praying with them. Maybe it means talking to them about why you believe what you believe. Parents, it's so important for us to help our kids to see who Jesus is. And for some of us parents, we have 2-3 years to impart these things on our kids' lives. We have high school students, and so we've got to focus on these things. And there's these things we have to focus on quicker. And then there's others of us who we've got 15 years of runway to continue to help our kids to see who Jesus is. But we have to be intentional along the way. And Moses talked about this, and we read this verse just a minute ago. He talked about this in Deuteronomy 6. Impress them on your children. Impress those values. Impress that commandment that God is God. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. See, Moses is reminding us that every moment of our lives, we should be bringing up Jesus. We should bring Jesus into, he's not talking about Jesus because Jesus hasn't come yet, but God, we should be bringing God into every moment of our kids' lives. We need to saturate our kids' lives with Jesus. And that means in every moment that we have, we need to help Jesus be seen in every moment. And so whenever we sit at home with our kids, we're sitting at the dinner table, talk about Jesus. When you sit on the couch about to watch a TV show, talk about your faith. When you walk along the road, okay, maybe you're not walking along the road, but when you're driving your kids to school, talk about what you're going through. Talk about what it looks like to follow Jesus. Encourage them to talk about their faith with their friends. And just start conversations with them. When they lie down, when they're going to bed, read your Bible with them. Pray with them. When they get up, do the same. Pray with them. Tell them how much God loves them, how much you love them. And parents, if you are widening the circle with us here at Community and you're partnering with us, we'll give you guides to help you to continue to connect with your kid throughout the week. And those parent cues, those pieces of paper we send home every week, it's this opportunity for us to help you, partner with you. And so it tells you at bedtime what to say. It tells you at bath time how to have a conversation with your kid. In the morning, what to say. It tells you along the way to continue to help them to continue to build up their faith. And so parents, that's why we want to partner with you. But maybe for some of you, this whole faith thing is brand new, and so you just don't know what to do. What I would say is when you get in the car, instead of just listening to whatever music you want to listen to, throw in a podcast that talks about the Bible. Maybe at dinner time, buy a kid's devotional and you guys just talk about what it says in the kid's devotional. And that'll help you build up your faith, but also it'll help you to continue to build up your kids' faith. And it's so important for us to start our kids off in the right direction, to start them on the right path so that they can continue to pursue Jesus after they graduate high school. And that's why in Proverbs, King Solomon, the wisest man to ever walk this earth, he said this: start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. Start children off in the way they should go. Help them to follow the right direction. It doesn't matter if you've started now, start now. If you've missed time, start now. Start your children off in the right direction. Start them to continue to pursue Jesus with their whole lives. Start them in the right direction, and then when they get old, they will not turn from it. And I know for some of you in the room, you've raised kids already. And they've graduated high school. They moved on already. And for you, you're saying, well, I took my kids to church. They grew up in the faith. They should know, but they don't follow Jesus anymore. Or they don't attend church anymore. Or they really don't even acknowledge religion anymore. For some of you in this room, I know this is a hard thing. And what I want to say for you is I see you. But what I also know is that I've been on the other end of those conversations, and I've talked to people who they've said, I was raised in the church. I grew up in the church. I wandered away, but I'm back. See, it's so important for us as parents to start our kids off in the right direction. And so parents, you have a moment in time with your kids. Be intentional about where they are going. Be intentional about how you're continuing to help them to see who Jesus is along the way, because it is our job to imagine the end for them. It's our job to take that 30,000 foot view and imagine what it looks like for them when they graduate high school. But for us as adults, for us as people, what's it look like for us to imagine the end? It means in the decisions we make, how's this going to continue to glorify Christ? It means for us to continue to keep Christ as the center of our lives, to continue to go forward. And what I believe is that for so long, we've had some of the best intentions to continue to follow Jesus, but we've failed on that. Like we've let the noise around us to stop us going in the direction we're supposed to. We've had the best intentions, but we've lost track, and we've been just 1 degree off, and so we've missed following Jesus fully with our lives. Andy Stanley, in his book, Principle of the Path, says it this way: direction, not intention, determines your destination. Direction, not intention, determines your destination. That's the truth. The direction you're moving in determines where you're going to go, not your intentions. And so maybe for some of us, we had the best intentions. We had the best intentions of getting out of that addiction, but we didn't put any work in. We stopped really focusing on following Jesus. And so that's why places like Celebrate Recovery, what we talked about last week, are so important for us. It's this opportunity for us to continue to go in the direction we're supposed to go in, to put in the work so that we can continue to overcome those addictions, those hurts, those habits, those hang-ups. That's why Celebrate Recovery is so important. It's putting in the work. It's going in the direction of Jesus. That's why maybe for some of us, we had the best intentions when we got married. We were in love. We got married, we were in love, and then we had kids. And so we stopped dating our spouse. And they started playing sports, our kids did. We got jobs. We got families. We got distracted. And now we're empty nesters. And the person we live with, we don't even know anymore. See, we had the best intentions, right? We were in love, but now, because we lost direction, we got 1 degree off, we don't know who we live with anymore. And for us, it's so important for us to continue to move in the direction that we are supposed to move into so that we can continue to pursue Jesus with every part of our life. And one of the best models for that, for me, was my father-in-law, Sam. And for some of you, you may not have heard his story, but Sam, my father-in-law, Sam, passed away almost 3 years ago from a rare form of cancer that he had in his appendix that spread throughout his body. But one of the things that Sam left us with was this example. This example of how to raise our kid, but also this example of how Christ should be the center of everything we do. In his battle, he had verses that he would talk about all the time. But one of the verses, the sets of verses that stands out and continues to stand out and talk about the example that he had on our lives is in Philippians chapter 1, verse 20. It says this: I eagerly expect and hope that I in no way will be ashamed, but will have sufficient courage, so that now, as always, Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. And the example that he showed us, even in this battle that he knew was going to be a hard battle, even though he knew his body was being overcome by cancer, the example he showed us in this situation was that even in this battle, that Christ would be glorified in his life. And so he continued to help people to see Christ through his life. He helped people to continue to see that even though he is struggling, and so either by life or by death in his life, that Christ would be glorified in his life. And for some of us, as we battle through the day-to-day life, we've lost focus on the one thing that matters most, and that's Christ. The example that we have to continue to move forward and is Christ in our lives. And so we've got to adjust our compasses and course correct and come back to Christ. We have to go in the direction he is calling us to go in. We have to get back to what he wants us to do. And so for us, we have to continue to put Christ at the center of our lives. In every decision and every relationship, in everything we do, we have to put Christ at the center so that Christ could be glorified. He could be exalted in our bodies, in our lives, whether by life or by death, that Christ can be glorified. And so for us, if we are going to imagine the end, we want Christ to be the center. I'm going to say it again. If we are going to imagine the ends in our lives, we want Christ to be the center. And so that's true in our kids' lives. If we want to imagine the end of our kids' lives in our house, that they eventually get out of our house, if we want to imagine the end of that time, then we want Christ to be the center of their lives. If we want to look at the end of our lives, the end of our journeys, we want Christ to be the center of that. We want people to say at our funerals that Christ was glorified through our lives. And for some of us in this room, we've looked everywhere else. Maybe for you, you've looked everywhere else and you've pursued everything else and you've struggled through life. You've tried to fill your life with everything else and it's just not working out. You've got the kids and you've got their sports and you've got relationships with other people and you're just left on empty because you've not been pursuing the right thing. If that's you in this room and you're in that boat, I want to ask you to come to Jesus. Give Jesus a shot. I mean, you've tried everything else. Why not try the thing that can give you hope and give you restoration and give you a hope for the future? Give Christ the opportunity to be the center. Maybe for you, you've said, but I am so far from Jesus, there's no way he would ever want to be a part of my life. What I want to say to you is that God loved you so much, he sent his son for you. But not only this, God leaves the 99 to pursue after you. And so maybe you've been running away for so long from Jesus, but the great part is that he's been running after you. He's been pursuing after you, and he wants you to come to him. And so if you're in this room today and you want to make a decision to follow Jesus, I want to encourage you, come down to the front after service. We'll have a prayer team that'll pray with you on what it looks like to have Jesus to be the center of your life. Or maybe find one of us outside and we'll talk to you about that. We want to celebrate with you making that decision to say you're ready to follow Jesus with your life, to say you're all in. So if that's you, we want to celebrate with you. If you're online and that's what you want to do, if you want to make a decision to follow Christ, I want to encourage you, email us, office@community.cc, or you can go in the app and you can say that you want to make a first-time decision to follow Jesus. And we want to encourage you. If you're in this room and you don't want to talk to someone, number one, we want to talk to you about this, but if you're a little shy about this, you can also fill it out in the app as well and just say you want to make a first-time decision. We want to celebrate with you on what it looks like to put Christ at the center of your life. But then there's those of us in this room. We've made the decision to follow Christ, but we've never taken the step of faith to be baptized. If that's you in this room, we want to celebrate with you. We want you to come and give your life to Christ. Baptism is this outward sign of an inward change. It's a way for us to tell everyone that you're all in with Jesus. If that's you, you can do the same. You can talk to one of us down front or one of us outside or fill it out in the app as well. And lastly, maybe you've been following Jesus, but you're 1 degree off. And so you've missed the mark. You felt like you were all in, but things got in the way, and so you got a little bit distracted. For you, I want to encourage you, course correct. Get back where you need to be, and then set the compass on the right direction and follow him with every part of your life. And remember, if we're going to imagine the end, we want Christ to be the center. We want Christ to be the center of everything. Let's pray. God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for, God, the opportunity to have you to be the center of our lives. God, that you loved us so much that you sent your son for us. And God, we pray that we can help you. We can put you at the center so in everything we do, we pursue you, God. God, for those of us who are here that are sitting on the fence about making a decision to follow you, God, I pray that we take that step of faith so that we can see that we are all in with you and we can find hope in you. God, for those of us who maybe have gotten a little bit off, God, I pray that we reach out to get help so that we can have you be number one again in our lives. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen. Thank you guys so much for joining us this weekend. We'll see you guys next weekend.